A night that changed everything. Riley Thompson had exactly $3.47 in her checking account. When she took the catering job at the Riverside Hotel, the most exclusive charity gala in Manhattan was happening tonight, and desperate times called for uncomfortable heels and borrowed uniforms. She needed this paycheck desperately. Her father's heart medication was due next week, and the pharmacy had already called twice about the overdue bill. The ballroom sparkled like something from a movie. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across marble floors. Women wore dresses that cost more than Riley's yearly rent, and men's watches could probably pay off student loans. Riley felt completely out of place as she balanced 3 plates of smoked salmon on her left arm. Weaving through conversations about summer homes and yacht clubs, she never saw the champagne puddle, the fall that started. At all one moment, Riley was carefully navigating between tables. The next, her borrowed heels slipped like ice skates on wet marble. Time seemed to slow down as she felt herself falling backwards. The plates flew in perfect arcs through the air. Salmon traced artistic trajectories across the elegant space. Riley's arms windmilled uselessly as gravity took over, then she landed directly in someone's lap. Not just anyone's lap. She had somehow managed to fall directly onto the most impeccably dressed man in the entire ballroom. His suit probably cost more than her car. His cologne smelled expensive, and his expression suggested he was about to have a complete breakdown. "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry," Riley gasped, trying to scramble up. But her broken heel made her stumble again, and her palms planted firmly against his chest. This was totally an accident. The unexpected line. Ethan Blackwood looked down at the clumsy waitress now tangled in his lap. Then he looked at the salmon decorating his $50,000 suit. Then he looked at the 15 Japanese investors watching this disaster unfold in complete silence. "Mr. Tanaka." The group's leader bowed respectfully. "Blackwood-san, your wife is very spirited." Riley's mouth fell open to correct him. But Nathan's hand gripped her elbow tightly, and his eyes sent a clear message. "Do not speak," he responded in flawless Japanese, something that made the investors smile and nod approvingly. "Darling," Nathan said in English, his smile so forced it looked painful. "Perhaps we should go freshen up." "But I'm not your wife," Riley whispered frantically. "Darling," he repeated through gritted teeth. "Let's go freshen up right now." Riley glanced around desperately. 15 incredibly wealthy men were watching expectantly. Nathan looked 2 heartbeats away from a nervous breakdown. And she really, really needed this paycheck, of course. "Sweetheart," she managed, nearly choking on the endearment. The marble bathroom confession 5 minutes later. In the hotel's luxurious marble bathroom, Riley confronted Nathan through the ornate mirror. "What exactly did you tell them?" "That you're my reserved wife, who gets anxious at social gatherings," Nathan said, running his fingers through his perfectly styled hair. "That's why you sometimes work undercover as waitstaff, to connect with everyday people." Riley stared at him like he had grown a second head. "You told them what?" It worked perfectly. Japanese culture values humility and authenticity. They found it endearing, and now what? Do I march back out there and announce surprise? I'm just a broke waitress. Nathan began pacing in tight circles. "Absolutely not. They've already committed to the deal based on my stable family foundation. If they discover I lied, I lose $2 billion. $2 billion. Riley's voice squeaked. "I don't even have 200 in savings." "Precisely. Which is why you'll continue playing my wife. Just for tonight. A few hours at most. What could possibly go wrong?" Riley looked at him like he had completely lost his mind. "Literally everything. I don't even know which fork to use for salad." "The devil's bargain? It's simple," Nathan said quickly. "Speak minimally. Smile graciously. Let me handle conversations. And what do I get out of this?" Nathan pulled out his wallet and placed cash in her palm that made her knees buckle. "That's just the down payment. Successfully complete tonight, and there's significantly more." Riley stared at the money. 3 months of rent. Her father's prescriptions. Maybe enough left over for groceries that weren't ramen noodles. Fine. But if anyone asks direct questions, I'm winging it. Absolutely not. No improvisation whatsoever. Riley extended her hand. "Deal, husband dearest. When their palms met, neither expected the electric shock that shot up both their arms. Nathan released her hand first, clearing his throat awkwardly. We should return. They're waiting. Learning the lie, wait, Riley said as they approached the ballroom entrance. What's my married name? Pure panic crossed Nathan's face. Riley Blackwood, he whispered urgently. You've been Riley Blackwood for 3 years. We married in Napa Valley. Honeymoon in the Bahamas? Napa Valley? I've never even been to California. Wine country. Rolling vineyards. Romantic sunsets. Boutique winery ceremony. Riley tried processing this information while surveying the ballroom filled with people who probably earned more in a week than she made all year. And how did we meet? You were an art student? Aspiring painter. That explains your free-spirited nature. I can barely draw stick figures. Now then, don't discuss. Art. Mention exploring different creative mediums. Mr. Tanaka. Approach carrying crystal champagne flutes. Blackwood-san, would your wife care for refreshment? Riley grabbed the delicate glass enthusiastically. Absolutely. I love champagne. She took a generous sip, and her face contorted with obvious distaste. It tasted like spoiled grape juice mixed with battery acid. My wife prefers younger vintages. Nathan recovered smoothly. She favors lighter wines. How fascinating, Tanaka beamed. My own wife prefers lighter sake varieties. You ladies share wonderful sensibilities. Riley nodded enthusiastically, causing champagne to slosh dangerously. Exactly. We both appreciate youthful beverages. The awkward silence stretched endlessly. She means recently bottled wines. Nathan coughed diplomatically. Current harvest seasons? Precisely. Seasons, Riley agreed cheerfully, completely clueless about wine terminology. Walking the tightrope for the next 2 hours, every conversation became a potential disaster. Riley nearly mentioned her cramped studio apartment. Nathan smoothly transformed it into their cozy weekend retreat upstate. She almost referenced her waitressing shifts, which became her wife's unique approach to understanding hospitality from every perspective. Then someone asked about children. We're actively trying, Nathan responded immediately. Sliding his arm around Riley's waist, the contact sent lightning through both their bodies. Riley felt her legs turn to jelly and unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest. Judging by Nathan's startled expression, he felt identical sensations. How precious, gushed an investor's wife. Your connection is so genuine. Riley and Nathan locked eyes, suddenly aware of something crackling between them that definitely hadn't existed an hour ago. Yes, Riley murmured breathlessly, unable to look away. Very genuine. The moment everything changed, their moment shattered, when a fellow server hurried past. Riley, what are you doing with the guests? Manager's looking everywhere for you. I've never seen this person before, Riley practically shrieked, steering Nathan toward the opposite corner. Too late. Mr. Tanaka had heard Riley's real name and noticed the identical server uniforms. Blackwood-san, he said slowly, carefully. Might I ask a delicate question? Nathan's palms began sweating. Certainly, Tanaka-san. Does your wife work at this establishment? The entire world stopped. Riley felt reality crumbling. Nathan's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Then something unexpected happened. Riley felt fierce protective anger surge through her. No way was she letting Nathan crash because of her clumsiness. I volunteer here once monthly, she declared boldly, lifting her chin. I donate my time to charitable causes. Pro bono. Because I believe wealthy families should actively contribute to their communities. The lie flowed so naturally, she nearly convinced herself. Nathan stared at her with terror and genuine admiration. My wife possesses an extraordinarily generous spirit. Tanaka's face lit up with complete approval. How truly admirable. A family that practices authentic philanthropy. The storm arrives when the Japanese delegation moved aside for private discussion. Nathan gripped Riley's arm. Why did you cover for me? Wasn't about to let you face disaster alone? Riley shrugged. We're temporary partners in this insanity. Something deep in Nathan's chest warmed in a way he had never experienced. Nobody had ever protected him so instinctively. Riley Thompson and Nathan Blackwood. They spun around to witness a statuesque redhead storming across the marble floor in designer stilettos that could double as weapons. "Who is that?" Riley whispered frantically. Nathan's face turned ashen. "My former fiancée." "Your what?" Cassandra Monroe halted directly in front of them, green eyes blazing with fury. "So the rumors are true. You married some random waitress?" Riley glanced between Nathan and Cassandra, then noticed the 15 Japanese investors watching this drama unfold in real time. "Well, crud," Riley muttered under her breath. The perfect disaster was about to explode, and there was nowhere to hide. The confrontation Cassandra Monroe was the type of woman who entered rooms like she owned them. Flame-red hair styled in perfect waves. Emerald cocktail dress that probably cost more than Riley's car. And right now, she was clearly ready for war. 3 months, Nathan," she said, completely ignoring Riley's existence. 3 months since you called off our engagement, claiming you weren't ready for commitment. And now I discover you're married?" Riley looked at Nathan, who appeared to have swallowed a cactus whole. "Cassandra, I can explain." "Explain what?" Her voice climbed an octave. "That you left me for some server?" Riley's blood boiled. One thing was pretending to be rich. Another was being humiliated by this walking fashion magazine. "Excuse me, princess." Riley stepped forward. "But who exactly do you think you are, talking to me like that?" Nathan tried to intervene. "Riley, sweetheart, there's no need." "Actually, honey," Riley emphasized the word while glaring at Cassandra. "There absolutely is. Nobody disrespects me to my face." Cassandra laughed with pure venom. "Your face? You shouldn't even be here. This event is for people with class, and what class is that?" Riley crossed her arms. "The kind that abandons men and then makes public scenes?" A collective gasp echoed through the ballroom. Several guests moved closer, phones discreetly recording. Nathan panicked completely. The Japanese investors were watching every second of this confrontation. "Ladies, please. Let's maintain some dignity." "Dignity?" Cassandra shrieked. "I'm going to sue both of you. Fraud marriage is illegal. The kiss that stopped time, the world stopped spinning." Riley felt the ground crumble beneath her feet. But this time, Nathan reacted first. "Fraud?" He forced a laugh. "Cassandra, you're delusional. Riley has been my wife for 3 years. 3 years. Cassandra spat. "Nathan, we were together for 3 years. Deadly silence. Riley looked at Nathan with an expression that could melt titanium. "So," she said very slowly, "when you were engaged to her, you were already married to me." Nathan opened and closed his mouth repeatedly. The Japanese investors moved closer, clearly fascinated by this soap opera. The situation is complicated. Riley felt genuine fury building. Not just because of the lie, but for being used in such a humiliating situation. "You know what, dear?" She removed the borrowed ring Nathan had slipped on her finger earlier. "You can explain this complication to your Japanese friends yourself. I'm done." She tossed the ring at his chest and started to walk away. But Cassandra wasn't finished. "Oh no, you're not getting away clean. I'm telling everyone you're both frauds." Riley stopped, turned slowly, then did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She marched back, grabbed Nathan by his silk tie, pulled him down and kissed him. It wasn't a delicate peck. It was a movie-worthy kiss. The kind that stops time and makes the world disappear. A kiss that made it crystal clear to anyone watching that there was real fire between them. When she released him, Nathan looked like he had been struck by lightning. 3 years married, Riley announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "And my husband still makes me feel like this. That's what true love looks like." The guests erupted in applause. Some even whistled appreciatively. The Japanese investors smiled with obvious approval. Cassandra's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. "This is ridiculous." "What's ridiculous?" said Mr. Tanaka. Approaching is an ex-fiancé trying to sabotage a happy marriage. In Japan, this behavior would be considered very dishonorable. Cassandra looked around, realizing she had lost her audience completely. With one final venomous glare, she clicked away on her stilettos the morning after the next morning. Riley woke up in her tiny studio apartment, staring at designer clothes that cost more than her yearly rent. Nathan had sent over outfits for upcoming events that looked like they belonged in a museum. Her phone buzzed. "Good morning, wife." "Too early for sarcasm, Nathan." "No sarcasm. We have exactly 4 hours to transform you into a convincing Blackwood." "I'm coming over." "You're what?" Riley looked around at her apartment, which resembled a disaster zone. "You can't come here. My place is a mess." Knock. Riley opened the door, still in pajamas, and found Nathan, immaculate, in a navy suit. He glanced over her shoulder at the cramped studio, then at her pajama ensemble, then at the mug of instant coffee in her hands. "All right," he said simply. Change of plans. A crash course 2 hours later. Riley stood in Nathan's penthouse apartment, which had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Trying not to break anything priceless? First lesson. Posture? Nathan was taking notes on a tablet. "You walk like you're late for 3 appointments." "Maybe I am," Riley muttered, nervously touching a crystal sculpture. "Stop touching things. Walk like this." He demonstrated with measured steps. Riley attempted to copy him and nearly tripped over the Persian rug. "This is absurd. Who walks like that?" "People who attended finishing schools? Try again." After 20 minutes of walking lessons, they moved to appropriate conversation. Never say awesome or cool. Say marvelous or delightful. Delightful. Who talks like that? You do, starting now. And absolutely no slang. Why are you speaking Spanish? That was Italian. See, this is exactly why we need practice. Riley flopped onto his leather couch, which was more comfortable than her entire bed. "Nathan, this is impossible. I'm going to mess up everything." He sat beside her, and Riley noticed again how incredible he smelled. Like expensive cologne, mixed with something uniquely him. "You won't," he said softly. "You were amazing last night. You improvised better than most professional actors." "That's because I was furious at Miss Drama Queen. Not just because of that." Nathan turned to face her. "You have something authentic. People believe you because you believe what you're saying." They sat looking at each other for a moment that stretched longer than it should have. Riley felt the air getting thick. "Right." She jumped up quickly. "Let's continue training." The comedy of errors the next 2 hours were disasters. Riley spilled red wine on Nathan's white shirt trying to look natural. Mixed up the salad fork with the dessert fork because they looked practically identical. Called caviar, those weird salty fish bubble things. But there was a moment when Nathan was teaching her proper wine tasting technique. Their hands touched on the crystal glass. Both froze, looked at each other, and for a second, Riley completely forgot this was all pretend. "Riley," he whispered. "Yeah." "Ring, ring, ring." Nathan's phone interrupted. "Reality check." "Tanaka-san," he answered, switching to business mode. "Yes, we'll be there at 7 sharp." When he hung up, Riley was fidgeting with her hair nervously. So, he confirmed dinner. Nathan winced. "He's bringing 3 more investor families. Table for 16 people. 16 people? And he specifically requested that you share some of your artistic insights. Remember I mentioned you were a painter?" Riley stared at him in horror. "Nathan, I can barely paint my fingernails without making a mess." "We have 2 hours," he said, already grabbing his keys. "Art gallery crash course. Let's go." The museum revelation. At the Metropolitan Museum, disaster struck immediately. Riley looked at a Jackson Pollock and announced loudly, "Looks like someone had a paint fight and lost." The silence in the gallery was deafening. Nathan whispered, "That's worth $50 million. Yikes." But then something interesting happened. Riley stopped in front of a Norman Rockwell painting showing a working-class family at dinner. Hands worn from honest work, faces full of love and determination. "This one," she said quietly, "is beautiful." Nathan looked at the painting, then at Riley's face as she studied it. Something shifted in his chest. "Why do you like it?" "Because it's real," she said simply. "You can see their whole story. The dad's hands show he works hard for his family. The mom's smile says she's grateful for what they have, even if it's not much. The kids don't know they're supposed to want more than this moment. Nathan stared at her. In all his years of attending gallery openings and art auctions, he had never heard anyone describe a painting so truthfully. Riley, that was perfect. Say exactly that tonight, really? Just maybe don't lead with the paint fight comment. He spent another hour in the gallery. Riley made surprisingly insightful observations about several pieces, mixed with occasional disasters like asking if a Monet was supposed to be blurry or did someone need glasses. The restaurant. Revelation on the cab ride to the restaurant. Nathan was coaching her on final details. Remember, we met at a coffee shop near NYU. You were sketching. I was reviewing contracts. Love at first sight. Love at first sight. Riley raised an eyebrow. Sells the story. And when they ask about our wedding, small ceremony in Napa Valley, just family. Very intimate. You were too emotional to speak during your vows. The cab stopped in front of the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan. Through the windows, Riley could see men in suits that cost more than annual salaries. Nathan, she said, suddenly panicking. What if I completely mess this up? He took her hand. That electric shock hit them both again. Then we mess it up together. Riley looked at their joined hands, then at his face. Something was definitely happening between them. Together, she agreed. As they walked toward the restaurant entrance, neither noticed Cassandra sitting in a black sedan across the street, phone in hand, making a very interesting call. Yes, I'm absolutely certain. Nathan Blackwood is committing fraud, and I have proof. Meet me tomorrow with a photographer. This story is going to destroy him. The dinner performance at the restaurant was the kind of place where reservations required a 3-month wait and personal recommendations from island owners. Crystal chandeliers cast elegant shadows over tables set with more silverware than Riley had in her entire apartment. Breathe, Nathan whispered as they approached their table. Remember, you belong here. No, I don't, Riley hissed back. I belong at a diner with plastic menus. Tonight you're Riley Blackwood, accomplished artist and philanthropist. You've had dinner at the White House, the White House? Figuratively speaking, just follow my lead. Mr. Tanaka rose from the head of an enormous table, beaming with genuine warmth. Blackwood-san and the lovely Riley-san, we are so honored. Riley plastered on what she hoped was a sophisticated smile as Nathan made introductions. 16 of the wealthiest, most powerful people in Manhattan stood to greet her. Every handshake felt like a test she was failing. Mrs. Blackwood, said Patricia Rothschild, wife of an investment banker extraordinaire. Nathan tells us you're quite the accomplished painter. How fascinating. Riley's mouth went completely dry. Well, painting is very personal. Riley is incredibly modest about her work. Nathan jumped in smoothly. She believes art should speak for itself. How refreshingly humble, exclaimed another wife. Riley shot Nathan a grateful look. One crisis averted. The first course arrived. Something that looked like abstract art on a plate. Riley watched others pick up their silverware and tried to copy them, accidentally grabbing the butter knife. Interesting technique, murmured the man to her left. European style, Riley improvised desperately. Nathan smoothly handed her the correct utensil. Riley spent a semester studying in Paris. She picked up some unconventional habits. Paris. Patricia clapped her hands. How wonderful. Which district? Riley panicked. She didn't even know Paris had districts. The artistic one, she ventured. Ah, Montmartre. The Sacre-Cœur, the little cafes, the street artists. How romantic, Riley nodded enthusiastically. Grateful for the lifeline. The truth that saves the conversation flowed through topics Riley knew nothing about. Yacht clubs, private jets, charity boards, summer houses in the Hamptons. She smiled, nodded, tried to look interested while Nathan steered conversations away from direct questions. Then disaster struck. Ellie. Dear, said Mrs. Peyton, a woman whose jewelry probably costs more than most houses. Nathan mentioned you volunteer monthly at charity events. How do you choose which causes to support? This was dangerous territory. Riley's only experience with charity was being on the receiving end when her family couldn't afford Dad's medications. I believe in causes that help families facing medical crises, she said carefully. Thinking of her father's heart condition, the table fell silent. Riley wondered if she had said something wrong. How deeply personal, Mrs. Peyton said softly. Did your family face such challenges? Riley felt all eyes on her. Nathan's expression was tense, ready to intervene. My father, Riley said quietly, deciding honesty was her only option. Heart problems. The bills were overwhelming. I learned how quickly a family can go from stable to struggling when medical crisis hits. The silence stretched longer. Riley wondered if she had just blown their entire charade. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Peyton reached across the table and squeezed Riley's hand. My dear girl, she said with genuine emotion. My husband survived 3 heart attacks before his bypass surgery. I know exactly what you mean. It's why I chair the Cardiac Research Foundation. Suddenly, half the table was sharing similar stories. Children with cancer, parents with Alzheimer's, spouses with rare diseases. Riley realized these wealthy people, despite their privilege, had faced the same fears and heartbreak as everyone else. This is why I married her, Nathan said unexpectedly, his voice thick with something that sounded suspiciously real. Riley doesn't just donate money to causes. She understands them from the inside. When he looked at her across the table, Riley saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. For a moment, it didn't feel like acting anymore. The phone call that changes everything as they worked through dessert. Some complicated French thing with more components than Riley could count. She began to relax. Maybe she could actually pull this off. That's when her phone started buzzing insistently in her purse. Riley tried to ignore it, but the buzzing continued. Finally, she discreetly checked the screen under the table. 7 missed calls from her roommate Jenny. 3 text messages, all marked urgent. The latest message made her blood run cold. Riley. Some reporter woman was here asking questions about you and Nathan Blackwood. She had photos. Call me now. Riley's face went white. Nathan noticed immediately. Excuse me, she said as steadily as she could manage. I need to powder my nose. She stood up on legs that felt like jelly and walked toward the bathroom. Nathan's concerned gaze following her in the marble bathroom. Riley called Jenny back with shaking hands. Riley. Where are you? Jenny's voice was frantic. This crazy redhead showed up with a photographer asking all kinds of questions about you. She knew you worked catering gigs, knew about your dad's medical bills, even knew which apartment was ours. What did you tell her? Nothing. But she said she had photos of you at some fancy event last night, and she was going to prove you were lying about something. She kept asking if you were really married to some billionaire guy. Riley's world tilted. Cassandra had followed through on her threat. She left me her card. Says she's writing an expose about fake marriages in high society. Riley, what's going on? Before Riley could answer, the bathroom door opened, and Patricia Rothschild walked in. Riley, dear, are you all right? You look pale. Riley quickly ended the call. Just family business. Nothing serious. I hope everything is well with your father's health. Yes, he's doing better. Thank you. Patricia washed her hands and reapplied her lipstick, studying Riley in the mirror. You know, she said conversationally, I've been married to Richard for 32 years. I can always tell when a couple has something real between them versus when they're just going through the motions. Riley's heart stopped. Did Patricia suspect something? You and Nathan, Patricia continued. You have something genuine. The way you look at each other, the way he anticipates your needs, how you light up when he speaks. That's not something you can fake. Riley stared at her reflection, completely confused. Did she and Nathan really look like they were in love? Because if so, when had that started happening? Thank you, she managed. That means a lot. Hold on to it, dear. Real love is rarer than people think. The surveillance, when Riley returned to the table, Nathan immediately stood to pull out her chair, his hand briefly touching her shoulder in a gesture that felt entirely natural. Everything all right? He murmured in her ear. The warmth of his breath made her shiver. "We need to talk. Soon. 5 more minutes. We're almost home free." But as they settled back into their seats, Riley noticed something that made her stomach drop. Through the restaurant's front windows, she could see a familiar figure across the street. Cassandra talking animatedly on her phone while a man with a large camera stood beside her. They were being watched, photographed, investigated, and tomorrow their fake marriage might be front-page news. Riley reached under the table and squeezed Nathan's hand, trying to warn him without causing a scene. When he squeezed back, the contact sent that familiar electric shock through both of them. But this time, it felt less like pretending and more like the real thing, which was either the best thing that could happen or the most dangerous. Because falling for someone during a fake marriage was definitely not part of the plan. The midnight crisis, the ride back to Nathan's penthouse, was tense with unspoken words. Riley stared out the window of the town car, watching the city lights blur past while her mind raced through everything that could go wrong. Nathan sat beside her, occasionally glancing at her profile, clearly sensing something was seriously wrong. When they finally reached his building, the silence in the elevator felt suffocating. Riley's phone had buzzed 6 more times during the ride. More frantic messages from Jenny. A missed call from an unknown number, and worst of all, a text from her father asking if she was all right because some reporter had called asking questions about her. The moment Nathan's penthouse door closed behind them, Riley exploded. "We're completely screwed, Nathan. Totally, utterly, catastrophically screwed." Nathan loosened his tie, watching her pace frantically across his marble floor. "What happened? You were brilliant at dinner. Everyone loved you. Tanaka practically offered to adopt you. That's not the problem." Riley whirled around, her designer dress swishing dramatically. "The problem is your psychotic ex-fiancé has apparently hired a private investigator, a photographer, and probably a team of fact-checkers to destroy our lives." Nathan's face went stone cold. "Serious? What exactly did your roommate tell you?" Riley pulled out her phone and read Jenny's messages aloud. "Some crazy redhead with a photographer showed up asking about your catering jobs, your dad's medical bills, which apartment is yours, and whether you're really married to a billionaire. She says she's writing an expose about fake marriages in high society, and she has photographs from last night." Nathan sank into his leather chair, running both hands through his hair. "This is bad, and there's more. How could there possibly be more?" Riley's phone rang. Unknown 212 number. She looked at Nathan, who nodded grimly. "Riley Thompson speaking. This is Rebecca Martinez from the Manhattan Social Register. I understand you've recently married Nathan Blackwood." Riley's blood turned to ice. She looked at Nathan, who was frantically making hang-up gestures. "Who did you say this was?" "We're running a feature story on unusual society marriages. Rags to riches stories are quite popular with our readers. I have some questions about your background, your artistic career, and the timeline of your relationship with Mr. Blackwood." Riley's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Nathan jumped up and grabbed the phone. "Ms. Martinez, this is Nathan Blackwood. If you have questions about my wife or my marriage, you can direct them to my attorney." He rattled off a phone number and hung up immediately. "Your attorney?" Riley stared at him. "That was the number for my dry cleaner," Nathan admitted. Despite everything, Riley started laughing. Not happy laughter. The kind of hysterical laughing that happens when your entire world is about to implode. "This is insane," she gasped between giggles. "We're about to be exposed as frauds by a society reporter, and you gave them your dry cleaner number." Nathan looked at her, laughing maniacally in his living room, still wearing the borrowed designer dress. And something shifted in his chest. She was falling apart. She was still the most real person he had ever met. "The impossible proposal, Riley," he said gently. "Sit down. We need to figure this out." She collapsed onto his couch, the laughter turning into something dangerously close to tears. "There's nothing to figure out, Nathan. It's over. Tomorrow morning, half of Manhattan is going to know we're complete frauds. Your business deal will collapse. Your reputation will be ruined. And I'll probably be arrested for fraud." "Nobody's getting arrested. Nathan sat beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. And my reputation has survived worse things? Like what? Like the time I accidentally bought a haunted mansion in the Hamptons. Riley blinked. You what? Long story. The point is, we're not giving up. Not yet, Nathan. Be realistic. Cassandra has photographs, witnesses, probably my entire employment history by now. She knows I live in a studio apartment smaller than your closet. She knows my dad's a retired mechanic with heart problems. She knows I've never been to Paris or Tuscany or wherever we supposedly honeymooned. So what do you want to do? Run away? Disappear? Change your name? And move to Alaska? Riley considered this seriously for a moment. Actually, Alaska sounds pretty good right now. Nathan turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his dark eyes made her breath catch. He said slowly, we could tell the truth. The truth, Nathan? The truth is that we're complete strangers who met 36 hours ago when I fell into your lap covered in salmon. No, he said, his voice getting softer. That's not the whole truth. Something in his tone made Riley's heart start racing. What do you mean? The truth is that in 36 hours, you've made me laugh more than I have in the past 5 years. The truth is that, watching you at dinner tonight, seeing you connect with those people, seeing you turn your painful experiences into empathy for others, that was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. Riley stared at him, suddenly finding it hard to breathe. The truth is, Nathan continued, moving closer, when you kissed me last night, it felt more real than anything I've experienced in my entire carefully controlled, perfectly planned life. Nathan, Riley whispered. Yes. And the truth is that Mrs. Peyton was right. What we have isn't fake. I don't know when it started being real, but it is. The air between them crackled with electricity. Riley felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to either fly or fall. This is crazy, she breathed. We barely know each other. I know you put extra sugar in your coffee because life's bitter enough already. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous. I know you'd rather eat pizza than caviar, but you're brave enough to try new things for people you care about. That's not knowing someone. That's just observing. I know you protected me tonight when you could have thrown me under the bus. I know you turned your family's medical crisis into compassion for others. I know you see beauty in things that matter, not just things that cost money. Riley's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Nathan, even if this, whatever this is real, it doesn't solve our immediate problem. Tomorrow morning, we're still going to be exposed as frauds. Nathan stood up suddenly, pacing to his floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Then we don't wait for tomorrow morning. We control the narrative. How exactly do we do that? He turned around, and Riley saw something determined and slightly reckless in his expression. Now we get married. For real, tonight? The midnight wedding Riley's brain short-circuited. We what? Think about it. If we're legally married, then technically we haven't committed fraud. We're just newlyweds with an unusual story. Nathan, you can't be serious. You can't just decide to marry someone because it's convenient. It's not about convenience. The words burst out of him with more emotion than she'd ever heard. It's about the fact that I've spent 32 years thinking I understood what I wanted from life. And then you literally fell into it and changed everything. Riley stood up, her legs shaky. You're talking about getting married to someone you met yesterday. People used to do it all the time. Arranged marriages. Marriages of convenience. Marriages that turned into love stories. This isn't the 1800s, Nathan. You're right. It's 2025. And I'm a billionaire who can afford the best divorce lawyer in the country if this doesn't work out. Riley stared at him like he'd lost his mind completely. Did you just propose to me with a prenup? Nathan stopped pacing and looked at her. Really looked at her. No, he said quietly. I'm proposing because 36 hours ago, I was a man with everything planned out perfectly. And now I'm a man who can't imagine going back to that life without you in it. The silence stretched between them, filled with the sound of both their hearts beating too fast. This is insane, Riley whispered. Completely insane. Nathan agreed. We could be making the biggest mistake of our lives, or the best decision. Riley's phone buzzed with another text. This time it was from her father. Sweetheart, I don't know what's going on, but if you need help, call me. Love you. The simple message from her dad, who had no idea his daughter was currently being proposed to by a billionaire in a Manhattan penthouse, somehow grounded her. Nathan, she said slowly, if we do this, it has to be real. Not just legally real, actually real. No more pretending. No more acting. No more fake smiles, for fake reasons. I haven't been pretending since the moment you kissed me, Nathan said simply. And what happens when your grandmother meets me? When your business associates realize I grew up in Queens and went to community college? When everyone figures out I'm not sophisticated or cultured or any of the things a billionaire's wife is supposed to be? Nathan crossed the room in 3 quick strides and took her face in his hands.
Ice.
Then they'll realize I'm the luckiest man alive, because I found someone who makes me want to be real instead of perfect. Before Riley could respond, he kissed her. Not the desperate show-stopping kiss from the charity gala, but something soft and questioning and full of possibility. When they broke apart, Riley was breathless. Okay, she whispered. Okay, let's get married for real tonight. But on one condition, anything. We do this right? No Vegas chapel? No quickie courthouse ceremony? If we're going to be crazy enough to marry each other after knowing each other for 36 hours, we're going to do it properly, Nathan grinned. And Riley realized it was the first completely unguarded smile she'd ever seen from him. I know a judge who owes me a favor, and there's a 24-hour florist in the village. And my housekeeper has a daughter who's a photographer. You really serious about this? Dead serious. Are you? Riley looked around his penthouse, then at Nathan's face, then at her phone, still buzzing with messages from reporters trying to destroy the life she'd stumbled into. Yeah, she said, surprising herself. I'm serious too. The 3 a.m. ceremony at 3:47 in the morning. Riley stood in front of Nathan's bathroom mirror, wearing a simple white dress that his housekeeper's daughter had miraculously produced. The dress had belonged to Lisa's grandmother. Vintage 1950s with delicate pearl buttons down the back, a fitted bodice, and a knee-length skirt that swayed when she moved. It wasn't designer. It wasn't expensive. But it was perfect. It made her look like herself instead of someone she was pretending to be. Her hands shook as she tried to apply mascara, the wand trembling so badly she had to stop and take several deep breaths. In approximately 3 hours, she was going to marry a man she'd known for exactly 36 hours. Riley, Nathan knocked softly on the bathroom door. The judge will be here in 20 minutes, and apparently my florist friend managed to find white roses at this hour, which she says is some kind of miracle. Coming, she called back, her voice only slightly hysterical. When she opened the bathroom door, Nathan was standing in the hallway wearing a navy suit she hadn't seen before. Not one of his perfectly tailored business suits, but something softer, more personal. In his hands, he held a small bouquet of perfect white roses, tied with ivory silk ribbon. You look, he started, then stopped completely, just staring at her with an expression of pure wonder. Like a fraud, Riley suggested weakly. Like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, he said simply. Like exactly who you're supposed to be. Like the woman I want to wake up next to for the rest of my life. Before Riley could respond, his doorbell chimed. That'll be Judge Morrison, Nathan said, reaching for her hand. Are you ready for this? Really ready? Because once we do this, there's no going back. Riley looked down at their joined hands, his perfectly manicured hers still bearing a small scar from a childhood accident. The contrast didn't matter anymore. They fit together despite being completely different. Or maybe because of it. Let's go get married, Nathan Blackwood, she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Judge Morrison turned out to be a woman in her mid-60s, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun, kind brown eyes behind designer glasses, and a warm smile that immediately put Riley at ease. Known Nathan since he was 12 years old, she explained, to Riley as they arranged themselves. In front of the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Outside Manhattan was beginning to wake up. His grandmother and I went to law school together. She's going to be absolutely delighted when she hears about this. About the wedding, Riley asked nervously. About the fact that Nathan finally found someone who makes him smile with his whole face instead of just his mouth. Judge Morrison said with a knowing look as the sun began to rise over Manhattan, casting golden light through the windows and painting everything in warm, honey-colored tones. Riley and Nathan found themselves standing hand in hand before Judge Morrison, about to exchange vows they'd written on hotel stationery in 15 frantic minutes. "Before we begin," Judge Morrison said warmly, "I want you both to remember that marriage isn't just about the love you feel today. It's about choosing to love each other every day, even when it's difficult." Nathan, Riley, are you ready to make those promises to each other? "Yes," they said simultaneously, and the words seemed to echo in the golden morning light. "The vows that changed everything, Nathan." Judge Morrison nodded. "Please, share your vows." Nathan turned to face Riley fully, and she could see her reflection in his eyes. "Riley," he began, his voice thick with feeling, 36 hours ago, I thought I had my life perfectly planned. Every detail mapped out, every contingency accounted for, every possible variable controlled. Then you literally crashed into it and showed me the difference between having everything and having what actually matters." Riley felt tears starting to well up as he continued. "You've taught me that the best things in life aren't planned. They're discovered. You've shown me that being real is infinitely better than being perfect. You've made me laugh at myself, made me question everything I thought I wanted, and made me realize that all those years of careful planning were just me waiting for you to show up and turn my world upside down in the most wonderful way possible." His voice grew stronger, more confident. "Promise to love your honesty, even when it terrifies me. I promise to appreciate your courage, even when it makes me panic. I promise to support your dreams, even when they're different from mine. I promise to be worthy of your trust, to protect your heart, and to spend every day proving that falling for you was the smartest thing I've ever done." Riley wiped away tears she didn't realize she was crying, her heart so full she could barely breathe. "Riley," Judge Morrison prompted gently, "your vows?" Riley took a shaky breath, looking down at the hotel stationery in her trembling hands, then back up at Nathan's face. "Nathan, I've never been good at pretty speeches or fancy words, so I'm just going to tell you the truth, which is what you've taught me to do," she began, her voice getting stronger with each word. 36 hours ago, I was a woman who thought she knew exactly how small her life was supposed to be. I thought I understood my limitations, my place in the world, what I could reasonably hope for." She looked directly into his eyes, seeing nothing but love and acceptance there. "Then you caught me when I fell, literally and figuratively, and showed me that maybe I was thinking too small. You make me feel brave enough to be myself, even when myself feels like not nearly enough.